Greetings, this is Stanley Tsiamoulis, aka the Stanley, the Spiritual Entrepreneur. Welcome to the Your Numbers, Your Journey podcast, a podcast to tap into the most unique and accurate numerology in the cosmos. And I have with me today Jeremy Britton from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. He is a coach, a keynote speaker, an author, and a strategy business coach. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. If you can explain to the viewers, Jeremy, a little bit about what you do, because you've had some very influential people come on your show, and you're also a producer, and you've helped a lot of people with your own podcast and so forth. So can you summarize a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, summarize my entire life into just 60 seconds or less. That's pretty easy, Steve. I became an entrepreneur at a very young age. I think I was 18, 19 when I started my first business. And I learned a lot in school about how to get a job, and that's the way the education system is set up. It doesn't actually teach you how to start your own business. The education system teaches you how to write a resume, how to pass an exam, but it doesn't teach you how to pay your taxes, get a bank loan, start a business, have a great idea, and become a dot-com billionaire. So I've learned a lot from my mentors and coaches. I've learned a lot from other people, and I like to teach that stuff as well. There's a lot of street smart education, which I never got until after I left home. And this is the education that I'm giving people now. I've also been volunteering at schools for probably 10 or 15 years, teaching high school kids that, it's great to think that you can get your uni degree and get a job. But number one, what if there's no jobs out there when you get out of uni? And number two, what if you don't actually like the job? So it is possible to actually start a business, run a business. And if you've got the strategy and you've got the mindset, you can run multiple businesses. Obviously, successful people like Richard Branson can have multiple businesses, and they're not actually working in them. Whereas the education system will teach you to get one job, and you just work in that one job, you have one concentration. But it's good for the kids, they say, who can't concentrate in school because they're always distracted looking out the window. And these are the kind of kids who have got multiple points of focus, and they can actually run multiple businesses and things like that if you harness the energy of these people.
That's a very good point that you just mentioned there, because the youth, obviously, there's a lot of youth now, especially in the digital age economy and the digital entrepreneurs and so forth, that are successful in many businesses because they've managed to master the keys of, say, social media. And you said if you can harness the energy, because some people may be scattered and stuff, if you can harness that energy into their gift, because everyone's got that gift and that passion, would it be fair to say if they can, as you said, harness that, they can then strategize that and monetize that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some people who are really good at focusing on one task, and they'll sit there in front of their spreadsheet for 5, 6, 7 hours until the spreadsheet is fully balanced. And that's good. Those are the guys who are destined to be accountants. And then you've got someone like Branson. I think, if he was born today, he would have been diagnosed with either Asperger's or ADHD, possibly both. But back when he was born, they didn't have those diagnoses. So he could have just been the kid who was constantly distracted, or by harnessing that ability and saying, okay, I'm good at running multiple projects, I'm going to run multiple projects. It's just not getting too bogged down in each one. So, and learning to manage people, because at the end of the day, your business is run on people. And even if it's just a business of yourself, you've still got your suppliers, you've still got your customers, you've still got, your support team and that sort of stuff. So you've got to manage your relationships with people, and people who can manage multiple relationships at multiple levels, they're going to be the ones who are much more successful.
So in relations to your journey being a business coach and you've interviewed some fairly influential people on your show as well. So, by interviewing people, you would have seen, say, pattern recognition and seen some traits of what's success and what isn't. And could you give away, say, 3 key secrets that for aspiring entrepreneurs out there that they can take away to help them go along their journey?
I'll give you one big secret.
Okay.
that just blows the other 3 out of the water. Probably everybody who's in the entrepreneurial space, or everybody who's ever watched The Secret or any of that sort of stuff, they would have read a little book written back in the 1930s called Think and Grow Rich. And that's kind of been the Bible of the self-help and business development movement for many, many years, almost 100 years now. But back then, you got to understand in the context, in the 1930s, you couldn't actually talk about meditation because, prayer was something done by the Catholics and the Methodists and the Anglicans. and meditation was something done by the pagans, and we can't talk about that. That's evil and that's bad. Like, that was the view of the church at the time. But reading the book Think and Grow Rich, it's not actually about thinking. You're not thinking about spreadsheets. And, the author's talking about going into your space and imagining you've got Leonardo da Vinci sitting down at a boardroom table with you, imagining you've got Henry Ford with you. And this is visualization and meditation before it became popularized. So when I was interviewing people on my show, and I've had, millionaires and multi-millionaires and all these sort of people on my show, ask them, like, how did you become successful? What got you started? Blah, blah, blah. But every single one out of like 150 people I interviewed, every single one, I asked them, what type of meditation do you do? I didn't ask them, do you meditate? I asked them, what type of meditation do you do? And I've even got to ask Arnold Schwarzenegger that question. And every single one of these people, every single one of these very, very successful people in their particular field, because Arnold doesn't have as much money as Richard Branson, but he's become very successful in politics and in movies and in bodybuilding, that sort of stuff. Every single one of these people, without exception, every single one was a meditator. Some chanted, some did Vipassana, some did Zazen, some did, swimming or jogging. They'd meditate while they were actually doing their exercise. Every single one of these people was a meditator. And most of them had never been asked, because a lot of other people who interview these fabulous, successful people ask them about the business, and sometimes they ask them about their mindset, but no one had ever asked them, are you a meditator? What sort of meditation do you do?
It's a phenomenal question to ask. And meditation, I mean, prayer is so important, I've found, because it resonates a certain frequency, and whether it be say Christian, Buddhism, Hinduism, Islamic, or Jewish, or what have you, each religion or philosophy, if you will, understand that prayer plays a role and miracles can happen. And from the ancients, because I'm a big believer in ancient wisdom, what I do in numerology and astrology, and it's derived from these energies that we get from the planets. In terms of saying these prayers at specific moments, it can cause an alchemical, magical thing. And these very successful people, I strongly believe that's a phenomenal question that you've asked them. I believe they practice at some sort of point, something along those lines of the prayers at specific times for them to be in that zone. Even I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger, watching me in Pumping Iron, where he's out psyching Lou Ferrigno. Yeah. I mean, very smart man in terms of a person who grew up in his upbringing, then he's gone and made in his mindset that he's going to become the greatest. But it's not just the physical attributes. He used the whole mental, the spiritual, the psyching, a bit of the psychology to get where he got, and then to transform that into politics. He obviously, I believe, just used the same strategies. It's just a different vehicle, so to speak. That's very good. Like in Think and Grow Rich, I'm not sure if you know, but with Napoleon Hill, because a lot of people have forwarded his book, and it's a great book, and I've read a lot of forwards. There was an audio narration that came after that, and they never released the book. It's called Outwitting the Devil, and it's a very good narration about two people going back and forth. And Napoleon Hill was beyond his time. He was talking about how to eat and nutrition, and smoking and cigarettes and the spiritual world. Like, he was very much into prayer. People didn't realize how metaphysical this person was. And that audio narration, in my belief, takes Napoleon Hill to Think and Grow Rich to another level, because he talks about prayer, and he talks about how the spirits, and if you drink too much, if you eat too much bad food, it's got negativity inside of you, and it's amazing. And a lot of these successful people too, you see them, they're not like very obese or overweight. They look physically intact because they're actually in tune with their body, I've found. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. It's all connected. And whether you're going from the religious perspective, whether you're going from the spiritual perspective, whether you're going from quantum physics, everything is interconnected. And I have a lot of clients who come to me and they say, show me how to triple my business, or show me how to make another $1 million, or, I've got this issue, I've got this problem with my business. And I always look at the business and go, okay, you've got a problem with, your clients are not paying on time, or your suppliers are not supplying on time, or your staff aren't doing the things that you want them to do when you're out of the office, and things like that. And every single business problem comes back to the personal problem. If I'm sitting with a business owner and they say, my staff aren't doing this, and they're not doing this, they're not doing that, I'm always having trouble. I have to sack staff and hire new staff. I can't get good staff. It's a problem within the person. And it's usually a communication issue. And then I actually asked them, like, get away from the business. Let's talk about how's your home life? How's your relationship with your loved ones? How's your relationship with your family? I'm like, oh, we fight or we argue. Cool. Now I know they're the center of the problem. And I can start working on the person actually on their own psyche and find that the business suddenly magically transforms, because the problem was never the staff. The problem is the staff reacting to how they are. And when you change yourself, everything around you changes.
That's so you're going deeper. It's like it's like the why. What's their why that's driving them? And obviously, if they've got those personal issues, it transforms, the energy transforms in the business side of things. With your interview, like you said, you interviewed over 150, people and so forth. Who's been the most? I know it's a tough question because they're all got unique gifts, and who's been the most prominent person that you've interviewed?
Yeah, that's a challenge, because there's a lot of different people. Like I have one guy who was multi-millionaire who went bankrupt and then bounced back. Had another guy who had cancer and bounced back from that. Another one who had a stroke and then bounced back from that. Another guy who was homeless and massively in debt, 6 figures, and then a few years later he was a multi-millionaire. And I've had one guy who was as a Tibetan Buddhist monk for 7 years. He was a former business owner, had some personal issues. He gave up his business and gave away all of his money, burned his clothes, burned his hair, and went and literally meditated in the mountains for 7 years, and then came back down from the mountain and started a business actually teaching meditation and spirituality in business and this sort of stuff. So there's so many standouts that I can't actually put a finger on one. But for me, wealth has always been, or for the last 15 years, it's been about more than just making money. It's about health. It's about emotions. It's about physical health. It's about health of relationships. It's about having a wealth of energy and abundance and that sort of stuff. So you and I are both operating on about 3 hours sleep right now.
Yeah.
We're still having a good time.
No, that's right. Like I set my clock and I thought, geez, is it 8:30 Brisbane time? So I get an extra hour or not, but it was 7:30 Brisbane time. But yeah, no, it's because I talk about the spirituality side of the world, health and the balance, and I apply it from, I'm a big believer in the celestial planets, and I've studied from the Vedas and Hinduism in terms of the Vedic mathematics and the scientific and the practical side of things. And that's why meditation is a science and a prayer. People, you've said something very, very important for people to do. People have a different angle of what meditation may be. Yeah. It may not necessarily be, sitting on a rock and meditating. It's their own little ritual, if you will, that they're comfortable with doing. And from your date of birth, you're born 2nd of April 1972, and the way I do that is the sun and moon is your identity number. So you're the 2nd of the 4th is 2 + 4 is 6. Your identity number, your first number is a 6. The other planets are accompanies what I call the character and the type of identity. Now, the 1972, if you add that up, is 1 + 9 is 10, + 9 is 19, 1 + 9 is 10 is 1. So your type of identity is a 1. So your identity is a 6. Your type of identity is a 1. You add those together, 6 + 1 = 7. That is what is called your life path number, or your character, which is the 7. So now you have 6, 1, 7. We add that again together. It's 7 + 7. 6 + 1 is 7, is 14. Narrow down to a single digit is fun. So your ESP code, your essence, soul, purpose code is 6175. So 5 is the person who could be in internet marketing, traveling, very intellectual, multitasking. The 7 is the spirituality side, the metaphysical, the religion, the philosophy, the quantum physics, mechanics. The 1 is the individual leader, likes their alone time, and the 6 is the responsible person, the nutritionist, the power, the guidance person, the messenger, the networker side of things. So with those 4 numbers, you can maneuver your journey according to the strengths, the weaknesses of yourself, with other people in the country you live in, and also in the running day and the month and the year of the person. And from the Chinese, you're a water rat, and the characteristic of that is you're smart and inventive. And from the Pythagorean, if you look at the noughts and crosses, you have the bottom row going across being the 1, 4, 7. You have the arrow of practicality. So you're practical in your form of business coaching and the spirituality that you do, where you have the 7 in you from the 6, 1, 7, 5. And of course, in the Aries are very good to get things off the ground. And people know that from the Western side of things. And with 2018, the energies of Earth with the other planets revolving around that those energies started to kick in September 15, 2017. So Earth is beginning to run now the 2-year. And that's good as a generalist, but specifically, how does it relate to Jeremy being a 6, the identity number, not the 3rd number? So Jeremy's kicking into an 8-year. So he had a 7-year in 2017, which is a little bit more, so a little more into the spiritual and metaphysical thing. And now it's starting to kick into the money year. So you can maximize your years and your months and your days according to those 4 numbers of the ESP code. Would that be a bit accurate, a little bit about yourself in terms of your strengths and weaknesses and attributes and what have you?
Yeah, I'm just wishing that I had actually known this stuff 20 years ago. I've had to form my own journey, and you know, for you who know me a little bit, and for some people who know me, they know that I had a heart attack when I was 33, and after that I became very obsessive about my health. I became very obsessive about how many hours I was putting in the office. So if I hadn't known about, you know, my own focus and my own energy and multitasking and my health back then, it would have saved me a lot of effort, a lot of pain. But obviously worked through that, got some great strategies and that sort of stuff now. So I became very, very obsessive, and now I'm starting to balance out. And like when I was 33, I gave up alcohol, I gave up red meat, I gave up dairy, I gave up coffee. I stopped a whole bunch of stuff that I had been doing prior to then. And now, you know, occasionally I'll have a glass of wine. You know, occasionally I'll just sort of relax a little bit, walk the middle path, but again, still being very healthy. Most of the time it's vegetarian, all the time it's vegetarian, most of the time it's raw whole foods. And if I'm good 80% of the time, then I can play out 20% of the time, because no one likes the guy at the Christmas party who refuses to eat the chocolate. You know?
Well, this is true. I mean, in Western life, trying to be the full vegetarian, like, you know, it's I believe being balanced is great, and having, sometimes some people may need a little bit of, say, white meat, red meat, because it's in their DNA from their grandparents from a different country that they migrated to, and the food may not be as good as when they were children. I mean, from the health aspect, there's a massive epidemic coming in, and you've learned subconsciously at 33, you were taught at the conscious level, wow, I got to like tweak my nutrition here a bit if I want to move forward, and then plan to gift in other people's lives. And not only you did that, you know what I mean, you've interviewed some very influential people who are successful from their own fields, and that led you on that journey. And like, that's when the master science from numerology and astrology, what I'm trying to create with the ESP code is be more specific and trying to apply it in a practical business-like manner to help people. And you know, some people don't get it. Some people may not be, especially in the business side of things, they may not understand it from what I'm saying. But because you had a pivot, and you raised another level of awareness. You began to understand some of these metaphysical, esoteric principles, and these principles were practiced to help people. And if people understand, the Bible is so written in code, it has so much wisdom in there if they just let the words jump out to them and not let someone else's footnotes tell them what it means. And that can help a lot of people, because you mentioned, you know, there was the paganism and they were looked upon this, but there's wisdom in every book, and I believe there's deep wisdom in every book. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I was brought up in a religious home. My father became Catholic so he could marry into my mother's family, and so he had to study, you know, Catholicism from the outside in, and that was sort of drummed into us as kids. It was more of an academic study than, you know, my mum who'd grown up in that background. And you know, because of my dad's study of Catholicism, I became more interested in studying other religions and going, what else is there? You know, what do Hindus believe? What do Buddhists believe? And, you know, what about this? And what about the Mormons? And that sort of stuff. So if anybody ever wants to come and knock on my door and, you know, try and talk to me about Jesus or whatever, I say, like, I've got like 26 Bibles in my house. You know, I've got the New King James, I've got the Old King James, I've got the New Living Translation, because I like to look at all the different ones. And I will read from multiple sources. You know, some of my greatest friends are Muslims, some of my greatest friends are Hindus, and a lot of my friends are Buddhists. And you learn so much. I think it was Muhammad Ali who said all religions contain truth, but you know, it's the one truth. It's like saying a puddle contains water, a cup of tea contains water, coffee contains water, orange juice contains water. But you've actually just got to dig through some stuff. And obviously, some of the stuff that's in the Christian Bible is allegorical, it's fantasy, it's pulled from other sources, and it even, you know, Galatians contradicts the Old Testament by saying that Abraham and Sarah were actually a fictitious story made up about the mountains. So there's lots of things in there you say, oh, maybe that happened, maybe that didn't happen, but what does it mean to me? What does that actually mean to me? And how is that going to affect my life? You know, do I need to believe that Jesus healed 6 blind men on one day, or maybe it was actually like 1 a day for 6 days? Who cares? You know, how does that affect me? Maybe I can be metaphorically doing the same thing by opening people's eyes, by educating people, you know, by taking people who are working away in the darkness and believing there's only one way to make money is by going to work for someone else for 40 hours a week for 40 years. Maybe I can actually enlighten someone like that. So as I say, there's a lot of truths out there. And when you compare all the books together, you get back to this one fundamental thing. So the Christian Bible says, you know, there was nothing and then God spoke and the world was created. And the back in the Hindu text and back in the Buddhist text, it says everything is vibration, which is why they do a lot of chanting and that sort of stuff, because their vibration can affect the vibration of the world. And then you throw the religious books out the window and say, let's just deal with quantum physics. And quantum physics says everything is vibration. The vibration of your mindset, whether you're observing the experiment, will actually affect the outcome of the experiment. So there's truth everywhere. Sometimes you just got to dig a little bit and pull it apart. But even the groundbreaking science that they're doing today and the oldest historical religious book that you can find, they are aligned.
I agree. Yeah, religion is science. I mean, the Old Testament is the New Testament, because still the New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. There's nuggets there that you can get from one old to the new and connect it. And everything is vibration, light, frequency, energy. And that's why the celestial planets play a role in us. And if people believe, and I'm a strong believer, the sun and moon are very close to us. That's why it's playing an energetic pull. And hence your identity numbers, which derive in your movement in life, hence your numbers, your journey. It's like you said, this sort of wisdom can help avoid 20, 30, 40 years of heartache ahead of time within 30 seconds. And this type of wisdom should be implemented in schools, like what we're talking about now. Like, you know, it can help so many people, and it stops the fear, the anxiety, the worry and what have you, and gets people to then be focused on their gifts and then pay it forward to help people in creativity and clarity. What's one of the problems that you've had that you overcome, and other viewers and listeners out there can do the same, like along your journey?
I think definitely. I mean, the health is one that underpins everything. And you know, in my sort of early years, in my 20s and in my early 30s, for me, it was just all about the money, because I wanted shiny things. I wanted to have the fast car and I wanted to have the big house and that sort of stuff, because you're kind of brainwashed a little bit by what you see on TV and what you see in the magazines. And there wasn't really a spiritual aspect to my life. You know, I did have a bit of religion, but there wasn't really a spiritual aspect to my life. And I was chasing after the money without actually thinking what comes next. And you know, as a business coach, when people come to me now and say, look, I want to make an extra $10 million, or I want to make an extra $1 million or whatever, I always ask them why. I go, because I want to buy a Winnebago. I say, why? And they go, oh, because I want to travel around Australia. Or why do you want to do that? Oh, because I want to spend more time with my family and show them what this great country has to offer, and blah, blah, blah. Cool. Okay. So it's not actually about the money. It's about spending more time with their family. And maybe that's, you know, they think that's going to take $1 million on a Winnebago, but maybe we can restructure their working life so they can work, you know, 2-hour days instead of 12-hour days, and they can spend more time with their family. Or maybe we can restructure their working life so they can actually operate from anywhere in the world, which you can do these days because of the internet and that sort of stuff. So they could be literally traveling the country and still running their business at the same time. It becomes something more than the money. And Warren Buffett said that money is like manure. If you pile it up in one area, it stinks, but if you spread it around, it helps things to grow. So
it's funny with the mindset of, like you said, the mindset in Australia. I remember when you've traveled, you watch a lot of stuff, and I watch, like, say, a lot of movies or documentaries on the plane. And there was a documentary on Warren Buffett, and saying how his main core team of 20 to 30 people or so forth have been with him since the inception of Berkshire Hathaway. He's come and he's very had informal meetings. They're not like board of directors meetings with Emil, so forth. It's just been the same core family hub. And I find it fascinating to be one of the most, wealthiest person on the planet. And that's his principle that he's had. He's kept that. And I believe that's because it's the energy and the frequencies, and it's that environment of everyone just being, he's got like a fun-like attitude, and he's brought that obviously to the business side. But I mean, Berkshire Hathaway is one of the, and he gave quite his wealth away to Bill Gates, but we're talking about strategies that they don't teach you this at all. You only may pick up a nugget from documentaries, and that's the good thing about if you know how to discern sometimes through a lot of TV or even the YouTube, because there's a lot of information coming at people. What would you say to people in terms of strategy and clarity, how they can succeed in business?
It definitely starts with the mindset. And most of us, I'm generalizing of course, but there's a survey that came out recently. It said 84% of Australians hate where they're going on Monday morning. So I'm thinking, okay, school has programmed as the education system or the schooling system schools you like a school of fish to all be the same. And you're all taught this academic way of being, and you've got to, learn this and then spit it back out and get your resume and get your job. And you whinge about your boss and you whinge about your job because no one likes their job and no one likes their boss. And that's just how it is, right? But then there's some people who actually rebel against the schooling system because they're not academic. They might like working with their hands. These guys might be the truck drivers or the tradies or something like that. And a lot of times these guys will do very poorly at school because they're not academic. They prefer to use their hands. When they leave school is when they have their great time. And then they'll actually create a business and they'll do things differently because they weren't infected by the schooling system. I think a lot of the people, if you look at, Oprah Winfrey, Richard Branson, Zuckerberg, Buffett, a lot of these guys never ever graduated college, never ever graduated university. They don't have degrees and diplomas. And yet these are some of the stalwarts of business and multiple billionaires who don't actually have that education. So changing the mindset to release you from thinking like a schooling system to thinking like this is the way it's got to be. And you do have to work 40 hours a week, because I don't see Richard Branson working 40 hours a week in each one of his businesses. It's literally impossible because he's got over 300 businesses on the go. It's learning these things that you don't learn. But first of all, you've got to let go of the ego, because the ego will tell you you're the most important person in the room. You're the CEO. You've got to do everything. You've got to do all the hiring and the firing. And if you walk away from the business for a weekend, the business will implode and collapse. So getting rid of the mindset, getting rid of the ego, and empowering yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm going to find someone who's smarter than me. I'm going to find a manager who's smarter than me. I'll come up with a few ideas and I'll let someone else do the hiring and firing. And I was chatting to you this morning saying my assistant made this appointment for me, and I wasn't even aware of it until 10 o'clock last night. I had no way of contacting you. But my assistant is now hiring her own assistants. I tried to hire a couple of assistants for her because she was getting busy, but I'm just too nice. I'm just like, oh yeah, you look good, come on board. And the person turns up 2 minutes late for their interview. I'll let that go. But she, no way. She'll sack them for that. She's very rigid. She's very disciplined. I go, wow, that's kind of a bit cruel. But that's good for me because sometimes I can be too soft. Sometimes I can be too forgiving. So I need someone in my business who's very stringent. And if you don't respond to the email within 5 days, she'll sack you. And if you turn up 2 minutes late for a meeting, she will sack you. And I just go, whoa. But again, Richard Branson seems to be this gregarious, happy-go-lucky, sort of warm kind of guy. Would you want him flying your airplane? No. Would you want him to be the guy who's working on the engines? No, because he looks like he's got almost zero attention to detail. But hiring other people who are smarter than you at very specific things. And this is why your accountant doesn't teach you how to surf. This is why your electrician or your carpenter who started their own business shouldn't be doing their own bookwork. They should have someone else doing that.
It's profiling with strengths and weaknesses and complementing them. Like in terms of like the number side of things, like, your identity is a 6 number 2. So if someone to do a business strategy, I'll think of numbers that complement my 8. If I wanted to do a travels, I'll go to a country that complements me. Say it's a 5. If I wanted to hold a seminar, I'll do it with a combination where it's a 3, 5, 8 to stack the probabilities in my favor. So profiling is important. And I found a lot of the social medias become people are using it, but they just get distracted from what's the purpose, I believe, is to spread value, true value. And a lot of people, it's just getting lost because see, the good thing, the internet is good and bad because it's fragmenting a lot of the energy. And it's just it dissipates. If you know how to harness it, as you said before, you can step outside of that and then share forward your gift, because some people don't have the ability to be. I'm a believer God gave us both sides of the brain, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So we can be artistic, poetic, but we also can be logical and analytical. It's just people are not eating correctly. So nutrition is affecting it with the health of the mind. And if the mind's not connected to the body and people are not meditating, say, or doing some form of some angle of meditation or cleansing the negative from, sea salt, because we're getting bombarded with other people's energies and frequencies. We are all light. And because some people vibrate at a different frequency than others, they may catch other people's negativity for a minute sense of time. Napoleon Hill mentioned this in Outwitting the Devil, but he said, in the sense, if you're eating and your system's like a plum of filth and it's clogged up, it's clogging up your brain. And, every time you're sipping too much of that alcohol, you're attracting the negative side of the spirit. And once the body cleansed, that spirit doesn't want to stay. It will go. But that type of talk, if people understand it's penetrating them into the business life. It's not taught though. And I believe that, as at the high level, needs to be to help the person in their business life or personal life. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, even as you're talking about the food affecting the thinking, I'm thinking, I went to a gym many years ago and there was a sign in the toilet, and there was something along the lines of, if your pee is short and dark, then your thoughts will be short and dark. And if your pee is long and clear, then your mind will be, your thoughts will be long and clear. I was like, okay, it's an interesting way of looking at hydration, because you don't actually think about that. And sometimes when you're in a bad mood, you just think, I'm in a bad mood because of what that person done, and someone cut me off, or because so-and-so was late for a meeting, or whatever it happened to be. You're actually blaming the external circumstances. But the fact is that if you had adequate nutrition, if you had adequate sleep, if you had adequate hydration, the little things that happen aren't going to upset you so much. And this is something I didn't learn. And again, you don't learn this at school. Like, they tell you at school, like, eat bananas and eat broccoli, but you don't actually learn why. And every other thing they teach you at school, there's a science behind. This is why the chemical reaction proceeded, or this is why we study the book in this way, or this is how we study a painting, or whatever. But learning about, for me, learning that there's 4 times as much potassium in the banana skin than there is in the banana, that's important. If I'm doing a lot of working out, if I need some potassium, I'm going to eat the banana with the skin on. This stuff isn't taught. And hydration, it's a massive one, absolutely massive. And
water's very important. Yeah, water's very important, because the body's water. The body's 70% water. The brain, 90, 94, depending on which report you use. But water actually communicates. It's a transform of energy, and the ether, air. That's why oxygen and water is the two most important things to our mind, body, and soul to feed. We are getting bombarded by the ether, and water communicates. It's been proven. Water can jump from beacon to beacon. It communicates. That's why there's collective consciousness. And that's why the celestial planets are playing a role on people, because I'm a big believer. If you think in the Bible, we talk about the firmament, and and there's a big movement happening with this conversation. And I'm going to be bringing on a speaker that I'll probably go for a 3-hour talk to explain to people how this is explained in all the ancient texts. And this is what's going to really start to help people to understand what really is going on with the collective consciousness, because that can travel from any side of the corner of the earth that quick. But that's another topic.
That's our quantum physics all over again, isn't it?
That's quantum physics 501. Tell me, Jeremy, if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place they can go and find out and about your coaching and so forth?
They can jump onto my website. It's 2 4 HOUR, so 24 hour spelled out, 24hourwealthcoach.com. Or if you search Google or Facebook or YouTube or anything for 24-hour wealth coach, I've got about 300 educational videos on YouTube now.
Wow.
And there's a lot of free content out there. And as a special gift for your people, mate, I'd like to offer them a copy of one of my books. So
awesome. Thank you.
Send me an email and say they want to get a book about health, or a book about entrepreneurship, or a book about making money, because I've done 3 so far. I'm working on number 4 and 5.
Nice.
But yeah, definitely. My first book was all about the money, because I was all about the money. And my second book was all about the mindset and the entrepreneurship, because that's the space I was in at the time. And my third book was all about the health. So wherever you want to be, or maybe you want to grab all 3, shoot me an email. And
thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you. That's much appreciated. I mean, and I'm a big believer too. Like having tangible books is good to read because it's your fingers are touching the paper and it's transmitting in the mind a little bit more. I mean, I know there's ebooks and so forth, flicking on iPad, whatever, but books are amazing. There's book energies and frequencies have books. My library's got books. I haven't read a lot of them, but those words are still coming into our brains whether we realize it or not. So I always carry a book with me whenever I'm driving. I have my book as well. It's I think I may have emailed it to you, but I will email it to you as well. But yeah, this has been a great conversation. We could talk for hours in terms of strategy because you've interviewed 150 people. You've obviously, I'm a big believer in pattern recognition, and you can start to pick up successful habits and non-successful habits from a different array of speakers. Because obviously, an entrepreneur, say, or a politician such as Arnold Schwarzenegger is different to a person like, say, Richard Branson. And they're going to have different attributes. Like I've often also been told Richard Branson may be an extrovert, but when you get to know him, he's actually quite introverted in his off the camera, so to speak. And that explains it in his numbers as well. So what's one final key takeaway you can give to the viewers out there in terms of if they're about to go on their journey and they may be a little bit hesitant, there's a bit of fear, is this the right way to do? What there's always that sense of, am I doing the correct thing? What can you tell them to help them? And they go, yep, I'm doing the right thing. Here I go.
I guess the reassurance, Stanley, is there's multiple correct things. It's like if you learned line dancing because you grew up in, Southern Central America or something like that, then that's okay, and dancing's a good exercise. It's good exercise for the left and the right brain, good exercise for the body, but maybe you want to learn hip hop, maybe you want to learn tap dancing. There's thousands of different types of dance, okay? There's probably at least several hundred different types of meditation. And again, all the people I interviewed, they were all meditators, but they all had their slightly different tweak on it. And following multiple paths. I mean, someone said to me last night that, remember that Amazon started selling books 23 years ago. Amazon started selling books in bricks and mortar stores, and that business was not profitable. They tried something else, and they tried something else, and they tried something else. And what's Amazon doing now? They've got Amazon TV, Amazon Prime. They make a lot more money off that than they ever did selling books, and obviously selling goods on the internet. So, after 20 years and after like 16 or 17 missteps where they actually lost money, they kept trying something new. So whatever you've tried, if it didn't work, keep trying. And you can have a look and say, I'm going to run my business like Richard Branson. I'm going to start 400 companies. And maybe that's not for you. Maybe you're more like a Zuckerberg who should just start one company and just focus on that, like nothing else. But again, Zuckerberg had to stick at it for 7, 8, 9, 10 years of losing money before all of a sudden he became an overnight billionaire, so to speak. So there's lots of different paths. And I've tried a few paths myself. I've had, I think, 12 or 13 different businesses. And I fell into business coaching accidentally because people kept coming and asking me advice about how I ran my different businesses. I never set up myself to say, I'm going to be a business expert. I was just learning along the way. And this is a business I've been running now full-time for 7 years after I sold my other businesses and tried to retire. I just fell into it accidentally. So you never know what's going to be your path. And unless you try line dancing and hip hop dancing and tap dancing and whatever else, you're not going to know which one that you enjoy, which one that empowers you the most. And same with Amazon, and same with, obviously, if you've been on Facebook for more than 5 years, it's changed a lot. So step out and allow your entrepreneurial creative spirit to grow, allow your business to grow, allow your ideas to grow, because we're in a world that's always changing. You're either growing or you're decaying. That's the way of our world. So definitely try multiple paths before deciding, okay, this is the one for me.
Awesome wisdom here, the viewers and listeners. Jeremy Britton, again from Queensland, Australia, keynote speaker, author, and business coach. Thank you for sharing your time and only having a few hours sleep and still coming on the call. I mean, that's the sign of an amazing entrepreneur. So, my friend, thank you. We'll keep in touch. I want to see if we can, I'll send you my book. My viewers can get your books and see what we can do in business moving forward. And when I do come to Queensland, I'll see if I can come on your show as well.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Sam.
Blessing.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.